5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, Vanguards. Thank you guys for sharing your day with us. My name is Drew. I'm the Director of Education for VITREUS, and I just wanted to thank all of you guys for taking a little bit out of your day to hang out with us. For VITREUS, I'm joined today with our Chief Technology Officer, Tim, our Chief Information Security Officer, Yas, and last but not least, our Director of Product Design, Taylor. We're a regulatory technology company that builds corporate solutions to simplifying compliance adherence, seamlessly blending AI with blockchain to improve transparency, increase security, and encourage governance. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim.
Thank you, Drew. Welcome, everybody, to today's Tech Talk. Very excited about today as we begin to unveil COMPLiQ and CyberVISION, what we've been working on for all of 2023. And today is the day we actually get to share our go-to-market strategy, what these phenomenal products are going to be accomplishing in the market. And I'm really excited to have both Yas and Drew here today with me. Taylor has been the product owner for COMPLiQ. He has overseen the design, the direction, and worked very closely with our partners and developers. And Yas has been the product owner for CyberVISION and has not only designed the requirements, but also has worked through the different frameworks and values. So really excited to have them go through this with you. So let's start with COMPLiQ. As Drew mentioned, we are a technology company that builds solutions that simplifies compliance and adherence. And there's nothing more foundational to accomplish that than COMPLiQ. COMPLiQ is part of the VITREUS platform as a service. And it simply blends artificial intelligence with blockchain technology and seamlessly improves transparency, increases security and governance. And this is really critical for 2024. As we've seen in 2023, it's been all about generative AI. It's been everywhere. 2024 will continue that, but with more focus on responsible use of artificial intelligence, how to protect it, how to see and actually govern what it's doing. So with that, Taylor, let's get into what we've been doing with COMPLiQ and what we've built and really what we're going to be doing with it in 2024.
Yeah, sure. Like you said, there's a rising prominence in AI regulation, right? As all of these industries or all these businesses want to start using AI and harnessing the power of generative AI as it's grown over 2023, governments has really pushed the envelope on trying to figure out what regulation looks like, what it needs to encompass. And we finally saw the first real framework come out of the EU with an executive order also out of the US. So it really lends to COMPLiQ's credibility as a product coming to the market at the time it's coming to the market. So COMPLiQ is meant to help everybody who's going to use AI understand what it's doing, right? So right now, when you use ChatGPT, for example, you put a prompt in, it does a bunch of stuff, and then it gives you something. That's great. It's a great tool. It's a magical tool, and that's how it feels. So when you're in the business side, you kind of want to know a little more than I put something in and magic happened. So that's where COMPLiQ comes in, right? It's meant to, through certain steps in that behind the scenes, pull data out so everybody can understand what's happening. It's called explainability. So in machine learning,
which is an AI term. Explainability is an AI term.
Yeah. Explainability is an actual term, right? So how a human can understand what the machine learning algorithms or AI models are doing is what explainability is. Or another term would be interpretability. How can a human understand what's going on here? And COMPLiQ is meant to kind of just harness the concept of explainability and put it together in a nice package for these user businesses.
So let's talk about that. So we're focusing on, there's no doubt artificial intelligence, its value and its usage is here, no doubt. But if I am a startup and I want to explore something very similar, you guys saw a lot of this in Lisbon, and where a lot of companies have a great idea and they attach it to a service like ChatGPT, and that's that, right? So if I am a startup or I'm looking to harness AI, how can COMPLiQ help with that simplicity and that fostering of that idea responsibly?
So anybody can use OpenAI's APIs to harness artificial intelligence, the models that OpenAI offers, such as GPT 3.5 Turbo that runs the free version of ChatGPT. So you can just strap in an API and then wrap up a product and you're off to the market. But that doesn't mean that you can help your customers understand what you do, right? So this not only improves sales posture, but it improves technical posture as well as these companies go to market. Now you could go to market and say, hey, this is what we do, this is how we do, and this is how you know what we're doing. So it really, really helps from that explainability point of view. But it also helps from a security point of view too, right? The underlying blockchain of COMPLiQ supports traceability, transparency of the systems here. So as these logs are coming in, we now have an immutable timeline of the events that occurred for the model. So we know if data went out in a specific way, and we can even apply through smart contracts permissions to retrieval processes that would actually improve. And this goes into the realm of governance, right? So when you prompt something in your enterprise, like AWS Q Star agent, Q agent, whatever it is known to have a very, very high degree of hallucination or data leakage. It's actually an eternal warning, I guess. But with those controls at the retrieval level that we can apply via COMPLiQ, we can actually help mitigate data leaks throughout an entire enterprise. So
that
really
right there is very powerful. So let's dive into that. Right, what you just described is really what we've been building all year. It's our layer 2 permission chain on the corporate side, and let's talk about kind of how we discovered this. We built this mechanism originally because COMPLiQ was a language model. We built these mechanisms, and then you guys came back from Lisbon, and what did you realize that we had actually built?
Yeah, so I think in Lisbon, light bulbs went off when Alexander and Andrew and I got in the same room, right?
Yeah.
Chad was listening, prompting us with some questions, and it was really, really good. But this circled around to, we can use the blockchain itself as something valuable, right? COMPLiQ was designed to do this. This can be a product. We can take this to market. And we can do it tomorrow. So Lisbon was very good. It illuminated some things, such as COMPLiQ's ability to penetrate the market.
Right, because we were approaching AI ethically and responsibly and putting in, these mechanisms, and we were like, wait, this is a beautiful solution that can be easily deployed in integration by combining the blockchain in the innovative way that we've done, regions of truth. And to your point, Amazon's products have been hallucinating. There's been proven leaks, and other organizations that are trying to catch up to what OpenAI has created. This could be a very complicated topic, especially when you add the regulatory aspect of it. So let's get into some of the values. Tell me more about AI data clarity. What are we doing to help folks with clarity within their AI data?
So AI data clarity is kind of a multifaceted thing, right? Where did your training data come from? What did you train a model on? What data is being used to generate the outputs in terms of a retrieval process, right? Where you grab a document from a specific file store or something that your business is supposed to have. Maybe it's pulling something wrong. Maybe it's pulling. So what did you pull? Why did you pull it? And how are you using it to generate your outputs? So we aim to provide that clarity by logging this entire timeline onto the blockchain and then displaying it to you through a nice single pane of glass.
And since it's on the blockchain, it's automatically immutable, it's automatically secure, and you don't have to worry about all these external security tools that would need to be protected. It's just a inclusive solution that does it all right at the layer, right? Tell me about governance, right? So Yas, we're talking, the EU legislation that came out. How important is it going to be for governance, especially in those legislations, or more importantly, maybe companies that have already gone to market and now they have to go back and revisit their strategies?
Yeah, so there's multiple areas where the EU is quite proactive in defining regulatory frameworks, and one is the the MiCA framework, which is all about cryptocurrency and how to kind of responsibly bring that to market. We have NIS2, the network infrastructure a regulatory framework that requires companies operating or having some kind of connection to critical infrastructure to report their incidents in a certain amount of time. And finally, and this is, I think, brand new, the AI, and I don't think it has a name yet, but I could be mistaken, the more general AI framework that's all about, okay, for different categories of AI, be it generative AI or high-risk AI, it lays down certain requirements that, for example, a language model needs to adhere to in terms of security, in terms of preventing hallucinations, and those types of topics.
And that legislation is 2 to 3 weeks old and is the most comprehensive currently. And Taylor, with that governance, or excuse me, with that legislation, how is COMPLiQ already suited to help with that governance?
So, as most of us know, data governance, blockchain, is a foundation for a decentralized governance situation, right? So now we can get into a scenario where we have lots of controls, lots of permissions on a chain level. This would help with decisions, the ability to make transparent updates, such like that. So governance in AI, specifically for this framework, was related to data governance. So bias mitigation, representative training data, such like that, so that models weren't being built on biased information, right? Make them actually generally usable,
Yes.
Make sure they're made responsibly, and do that in a way that you can explain it to everybody that is going to use it. So I think blockchain represents a great opportunity for allowing that to be done. It's clear, it's open, and it's affordable.
Right.
So
And
real
so
quick,
take us through, it's not just a blockchain, it's our blockchain. Take us through what layer 2 really is of our permission chain.
So layer 2 used differently in the VITREUS platform compared to actual blockchain. So
Yes.
layer 2 isn't truly a roll-up itself, right? Since we're based off the substrate framework.
Not a roll-up chain. Not a roll-up
We
chain.
use the concept of parachains. So the VITREUS platform being the relay chain itself, COMPLiQ is a parachain from there, which is sovereign in itself. But it's a source of truth for anybody that's going to use AI. So data is coming in. Obviously, we can layer in privacy to this, so not everybody's stuff is all commingled. But I mean, this ingrains a level of human oversight. It ingrains a level of transparency. It provides accuracy. And better yet, what we can do with a blockchain is we can get into the tokenization of experiments, the tokenization of results, models themselves, their outputs, which lends to repeatability and a lot of cool things.
Right, exactly. So with that, what would it take if I wanted to use this? How do I start using it? Is it complex? Is it simple? What does a typical experience look like?
No, so I mean, we have to go in, we have to check what you're working with, right? An infrastructure assessment is almost always done in any kind of integration. We need to know where we want to hook, what we want to connect to, what you're using, right? And how we can help. So all of this can be done within 30 days, and it's entirely API driven, right? We just have to put our hooks in a certain spot and you're ready to go. Within 30 days is very generous, very quick, and it's a very good turnaround. We can attach to universal wrappers that are already designed to run any kind of model you want to use. So
what are some of those universal wrappers? Give me a couple of examples so everybody kind of understands how tuned in this is.
Hugging Face, for example, is an ability to host models and run them towards an inference endpoint, right? So if we think about an application to Hugging Face. We can strap into whatever Hugging Face is running for you. We can pull data out of that to the blockchain. And maybe we even introduce C nodes as an inference endpoint network for Hugging Face to leverage in the future.
Maybe. So let's talk about that. So, Mr. Drew, what is a C node, my friend?
C nodes is our code name for a compliance node, right? It has a very powerful GPU in it. We're targeting like the A6000. But what that lets us do is run an LLM on the GPU and do all of this calculations very rapidly within our own ecosystem. So having control of that is probably going to be our biggest selling point for the C nodes. And I'm really excited to. I don't want to ruin it because I've got some things that we're doing, but it's going to be amazing.
Well, that's part of the COMPLiQ aspect, right? Because some organizations are going to want to run their governance, COMPLiQ instance on a DPIN infrastructure that is very affordable and has its own protection mechanisms and whatnot. And others will want to run it on a more multi-tenant secure platform. But we're going to be able to offer both environments, which I think is not only quite innovative, but is beyond revolutionary. And so you mentioned an entire LLM can fit on the GPU. Let's talk about that in a little bit, because that is a really cool design point that you and Taylor have been working on for months. What do you mean by an LLM can fit, an entire LLM can fit on one C node?
Oh, okay. So it's not so much that it sits and lives inside the GPU. It's that the GPU can process those inferences and those data points very quickly, right? So think about what it needs to do without the GPU is like maybe 200 to 300 times slower on a CPU, right? So if we want to crank in some information and understand the large language model, right? So we want to ask COMPLiQ a question. Hey, I've got some of these data points. I've got customers who have XYZ. Go pull this data. If I were to do that on a CPU, I could probably click the button and then come back in an hour and a half and see that I'm 3% done. With these GPUs, they're so much more powerful. We can do that processing of data within maybe a couple of seconds to a minute, depending on how deep that information request is.
Right.
Taylor, am I off base there?
No, yeah, I mean you're right. The A6000 is a 42 gigabyte VRAM video card, which, I mean, that's a tough ask for a consumer-facing product at this point, right?
It's a little on the high end, but when we say video card, it's not even really a video card. Yes, it plugs into the PCIe lane for video, but you're not using it for video.
No.
It's got so much more data processing power in these GPUs versus CPUs. It's night and day. I think with PCs now, I think we're up to DDR5, right? It's the RAM level of 5. But with these, it's like 6, maybe 7, DDR6 and 7. It's so much more faster. The lanes are faster. You can process information faster, and it's in its own ecosystem. So think of an entire PC just on the GPU. That's pretty much what you're looking at here as far as efficiency.
And they're built for parallel processing, right? And LLMs is all about matrix multiplication instead of the CPU, which is designed for just straight lines of information, go as fast as you can. And businesses like Intel and stuff like that are compounding a lot of cool stuff on top of that CPU baseline, but it's not going to be a GPU. All of the AI industry right now was designed around NVIDIA's CUDA cores, and we see that in their market share being above 75%.
Absolutely.
The CUDA library is just the foundation of AI as we currently know it. AMD is trying real hard, and I think they'll get there at some point. Intel's doing some cool stuff with their Gaudi 2 cloud stuff, but what we wanted to capture was the ability to use decentralized physical infrastructure, or DPIN, to offer an affordable, cheap, and composable environment where you can bring a model, rent a unit for a short amount of time, and capture a little bit of all of this desire for computing power. Most of these AI companies, they have massive clusters of H100s from NVIDIA that they are pounding on a regular basis to run their stuff or whatever, right? Raising $100 million seed, probably most of that went to NVIDIA for all the hardware. But now we're getting into a situation where data centers are rushing to buy these things, and these are backlogged, which means data centers are going to be overwhelmed at some point, right? Which means prices are going to go up, which means DPIN becomes more and more attractive, especially for DPIN operators. So that's where C nodes and S nodes all become valuable, and all of this is based off of the V nodes.
And what would a C node produce if it was a parachain off of power plant per se? Maybe V energy?
We are. Yeah. So it would definitely consume V energy, which means there's demand for V energy.
Right.
And people who wanted to use the C nodes, use them, would need to acquire V energy. It would be consumed on their stuff. But maybe it's not consumed. Maybe it's harvested for that operator, which could then claim the staking rewards on, where that part is. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe there's a different monetization volume through our partners that we could explore as well.
Right. But to be clear, the C node is designed, and it is we are in the process of pre-production, and this is a part of the COMPLiQ solution stack to provide this very critical, very energy efficient infrastructure. And it really is revolutionary from the ability to adopt it. If I were to go into AWS or Google, I can't just light up a little environment very quickly. I have to know the entire platform, right? So this is also a very elegant way for organizations to have compute power for their LLMs as well. And the fact that you have found something that can hold or house an entire LLM inside of the node is quite phenomenal. So let's talk about. Okay, so we've talked about COMPLiQ. We've integrated, with these wrappers. So when I'm actually looking at it, what am I looking at? I'm looking at a command center. What am I seeing inside of this command center inside of COMPLiQ itself?
So you're seeing, it's not really undifferent from a blockchain explorer, right? We're bringing in all of this information, but it's about how you present it. So we're going to need to know what the data is, what was stored. So we can put that into nice little fancy graphs, some logs, some tables for you, right down to the single inference event, right? So when this user called this inference event, this and this happened. Great, I can use that. I know how to then take that to, or my engineers can use this, my product team can use this, my sales team can use this, and now it becomes this whole business evolution kind of aspect. It goes back to the power of data itself.
Right. That's massive. Hey, you've done a phenomenal job, Taylor, leading this year, and I'm really excited to get this into Brian's hands for early next year. Now,
thanks.
What if CyberVISION sat on COMPLiQ and was one of the first real use cases? Jos, do you want to take us through an intro of CyberVISION and how it plays on top of COMPLiQ?
Sure. Yeah, you make it seem like a hypothetical scenario, Tim, but that's certainly not what it is.
We got to have some hype, Jos. We got to have a little.
Yeah, sure. Well, let me try and do that for you, Tim.
Thank you.
CyberVISION is really our first use case. So basically, we have this beautiful set of curated data, a single source of truth that COMPLiQ kind of represents. Now, what do we do with that data? And CyberVISION really leverages the data that comes from COMPLiQ for the purposes of cybersecurity reporting. Now, with every use case, there needs to be a clear, let's say, business value. So, what is the value proposition that we are catering for here? And it's basically twofold from my perspective. One is that organizations, if you look at the security challenges that organizations currently have, they, on the one hand, have lots of data from different tools and technologies, and I'm talking about our SIEM solutions, our EDR solutions, so endpoint detection and recovery. SIEM is security incident and event management solutions. Sorry, there's going to be lots of abbreviations here.
These are all tools that have massive amounts. They correlate a lot of cybersecurity information, right?
Absolutely. But the correlation part is really the crucial point here, because they correlate it within their own little domain, but overall, it's very difficult for a security operations center inside an organization to kind of make sense of that data. And the complexity of curating that data and identifying security incidents from threat intelligence and your own organizational logs, firewall logs, server logs. Apologies. That is a challenge, right? That is one, let's say, side of the equation, one side of the value proposition, because that's really what COMPLiQ does, right? It curates that complicated set of data. Now, on the other hand, we have regulators around the world actually defining more stringent requirements around, okay, I have a security incident, how do I, as a regulator, how am I made aware of that? And specifically for the SEC, to kind of protect investors in companies. Investors in companies, from a broad perspective, they will want to know and they will want to be aware of material events. And that's always been the case.
Yeah, real quick, we talked with our NetSpy partner last week about what these incidents and intrusions look like. Can you give an example of what one of those incidences would look like, and why would that person need to report it?
Yeah, so for example, a telco provider, they hold lots of PII, so personally identifiable data on their systems. If there is a 0-day being uncovered and it is exploited and data is leaked, that will have an impact on their customers. It will, in the case of ransomware, for example, that's another example, but it would have an impact on their business operations. So there's damages that result from that, financial, but also non-financial. And it's those events that regulators want to be aware of.
Well, in the past, there really hasn't been a structure where a company who didn't do their diligence in cybersecurity, right? Because intention is really a big part of that. And so what these compelling events are is legislation or rules within a federal organization that are trying to hold companies accountable and saying that a lack of attention or responsibility into proper cybersecurity mitigation is irresponsible. And what we're solving for here with CyberVision is really new, right? Because like Jas is explaining, these organizations have a ton of data, and the time periods in order to submit these forms is quite short. 4 days, we're seeing 3 days in some case. But Jas, let's get into what does a penalty look like if that day isn't met, or down the line, they come to that, or that legislation comes into an assessment that the organization is in fact negligent.
Yeah, so then we're talking about millions and percentages of yearly revenue. And depending on the regulatory framework we're talking about, that is going to differ. So the SEC has its own penalties for it. I don't have them from the top of my head, Tim. Sorry for that. But that's just only kind of one regulator that we are focusing on for our MVP, because actually as of December 18, which is this Monday, already organizations that are listed, US corporates that are listed, need to start reporting their cybersecurity incidents, as you said, Tim, within a period of 4 working days. And that's a challenge. That's really a challenge. So, you really need to have, your data curated in order to be able to kind of detect the incident and then do a materiality assessment, which is kind of a new concept for cybersecurity, at least cybersecurity regulations in the SEC. Basically, to have a process to define, okay, when is the incident going to have a material impact on my operations?
Well, the reason why it's new to cybersecurity is because they are not the part of the organization that is responsible for determining the materiality. So we're talking about one very critical aspect of CyberVision is the data curation. But okay, the data is curated. Now talk about the collaboration that is required and between the different parts of the organization and who actually is determining the materialistic nature of the breach.
A great point, because it's not going to be the security operations center or the security analyst in that center that is going to identify the materiality. That individual will do the analysis and will grab logs and analyze them and makes an initial impact assessment. But it is, for example, risk management or compliance management, legal departments, up to the CFO that will ultimately decide, okay, this incident is material, and we need to start building a report, and to get all those different departments, in agreement and alignment, or on the incident and how it happened, and to basically provide them with all the information they need to make that materiality assessment. That's basically what CyberVision does. All within, ultimately, there's a human that needs to push the button, but ultimately to help organizations meet that 4-day deadline.
So let's talk about the type of data CyberVision is using. So this isn't just normal, everyday, hey, I have a firewall or I have, this identity. We're actually using threat intelligence, right? So talk about the data sources that we're pulling in and how it will match or be able to not only curate, like you said, but the up-to-date information of threat and enrichment data.
Yeah, so there's lots of threat intel data sources available these days, often open source. And the challenge is really to use taxonomy, basically, let's say, a set of definitions. What is a vulnerability? What is a threat actor? What do we mean by that, right? What is what do they call it?
An exploit.
An exploit. Those all need to be defined before you can, responsibly use the data. For that, we use the MITRE ATT&CK framework, which provides that taxonomy. So we're not inventing it ourselves,
right?
Because the MITRE ATT&CK framework is really kind of the best framework, the leading framework out there, and is heavily funded by the US government, I believe. So that is how we would, let's say, classify and map data. But we would also use, for example, Alien Vault for the actual threat intelligence, because you can have a nice taxonomy, but when there's a new 0-day, you need to be made aware as soon as possible. Alien Vault, MISP, and I could go on forever. And that's kind of the threat intel side of it. From an organizational perspective, we would connect to solutions such as Elastic databases or Splunk, which will have a lot of organizational, let's say, internal data that we could then match to the
very specific data too.
Yeah.
And that's huge, right? Because we're not just, hey, you had an incident, and we're gonna put all this data together, and then you can view this legal team, finance team. We are enriching their data with all of the vulnerability, threat intelligence. It's all in that one portal. And that is a massive value, because when the data itself or when the incident is going, these are very complicated, coordinated events, right? Oftentimes they're very detrimental to a company. So they're already in a state where they're vulnerable, right? And another really big advantage is we are writing this to our blockchain. So Taylor, when we actually record these incidents, where do they get stored, and what is the importance in this matter in your mind as we've been building this to have all of this stored on a blockchain?
So immutability is one of the key factors here, right? And the VITREUS platform is designed with two kind of methods. A very nice method that is called a data storage gateway, right? So we can have businesses store their data on their own kind of stuff, but referenced on our blockchain. We can have businesses employ S nodes to deploy them or to have their storage or their data stored in decentralized storage, right? Decentralized storage has its own great security posture when you look at it against centralized solutions, right? Mm-hmm. The immutability and timestamped immutable records of this data is forensic evidence, right? So you can take this high level, okay, we've been breached, let's dive in. Now you have this nice set of events that an attacker cannot go back and just erase it because it's already written to the blockchain, right? And they're going to do that. They're going to hide their path. They're going to make sure it's more difficult for you to know that they're there. But with the immutable record always or being fed this data, that forensic evidence will help analysts and the people that need to discern the problem, mitigate the problem, and even define the problem as a CVE, for example, do so in a more effective manner.
And that is absolutely critical in a post-incident analysis. There could be a state of application sets that are down, compromised, completely quarantined. The fact that this system is out of band, meaning that it is out of that corporate environment, and it still has all of the threat intelligence data inside of it. It's immutable, it's archived, it's all seamlessly integrated into one solution, is what makes this not only viable for a company, but absolutely critical. Because then what is happening is the cybersecurity is, as they're inputting this data into this CyberVISION system, the other departments get to see it immediately, and all of the data external that would need to be mapped is already there. And to Taylor's point, it's traceability. And as you know, you get further down the path, just because you meet that materialistic timeline of 4 days, yes. How many months do these things actually go on after you do the original assessment?
What do you mean, dude?
So like, it's not just over as soon as you submit a form, right?
No, because after 4 days, basically you'll know that there's an incident. You will have done an initial materiality assessment, but you don't know, for example, the legal fees that you will still need to pay to I don't know, do settlements with customers that have been impacted, or you know, to kind of assess what really the impact on your operations has been is going to take more than 4 days. Yeah. And legal proceedings are also taking more than 4 days, if not months, sometimes years, right? So that data needs to be stored. It needs to be irrefutable, to Taylor's point. Specifically for these purposes.
Yeah, one of the things, real quick, Tim, that Jos had skimmed over earlier was how long it takes to get people to agree on what had happened and how it had happened, right? So if you've ever tried herding cats or worked in corporate America to make a policy change, these things can take useless amounts of days and days and days. So with our command center, having all that irrefutable evidence, black and white, what port was open, how they came in, what user used it, what data was taken, what user data was deleted, especially customer data, right? You also, you're talking about, you know, in America, we have the Patriot Act, right? So if some of that information is stolen, that's a big deal. You're responsible for containing and control of that data. And if it gets out of your network, you're going to have to pay for that. So granted, the hole in the vulnerability was there. We found it. Step 2 is solving that problem. That's sort of what you're alluding to now, right? So just because we've reported it within 4 days doesn't mean you're out of the woods yet.
No, absolutely not. No, no. And it's also important for organizations to be able to demonstrate that they have taken responsibility and that management has taken responsibility in doing a materiality assessment and that the CFO has actually reviewed the document, right? So that's really important, not only from a regulatory perspective for the regulator, but organizations are required to demonstrate that they have taken their, that they are
the steps needed to remediate it. Yeah.
Well, these are board level conversations. This goes all the way to the board. This isn't just individual. You're going to see, my prediction over the next 2 years is we'll see. I mean, we've already seen a chief information security officer. We've seen a chief risk officer, which is new. We'll see board members. We'll see, any aspect of responsibility or an aspect of neglect is going to, if this is not going away, this is absolutely going to be, it's just going to get more invasive for organizations as time goes on over the next 5 to 7 years. And when you go back to the earlier part of this conversation with cybersecurity inside of an AI, that is a totally new area that is going to explode as companies, continue to adopt that pattern. So both sides of COMPLiQ and CyberVISION, equally play with each other very, very well. And with that, let's kind of get into the final aspects of CyberVISION and the use of AI inside of the product, and what are we looking to achieve there, Jos?
Yeah, so what we're trying to achieve is to use machine learning to automatically identify security incidents. I believe there's always going to be a human that needs to say, yes, this is a security incident, but the combination and analysis of data can be largely automated through machine learning. At least that's our expectation, so that the security analyst doesn't have to do it manually. So that's one element. Another element would be, okay, we need to provide a report to the SEC. In this, and mind you, we've been focusing on the SEC reporting, which is called Form 8K, if I'm not mistaken. But there's more forms that the SEC is going to require, and there are more regulators that organizations will need to report to. And so it's not just one reporting process we're talking about. So there's also going to be value in leveraging AI to pre-populate the report. And what I mean by that is that to a large extent, the report will be pre-populated because the materiality assessment has been done, the CVE is known, and we already know when the incident was detected and when the materiality was assessed. Okay, but then to kind of write a story behind it in natural language is where we feel AI can also contribute a lot, again, with the objective to kind of accelerate and meet those tight reporting deadlines.
That's amazing. And it all sits on the COMPLiQ platform, right, Taylor? Everything that we're talking about will be using what's built.
Yep. And when we get into, writing those reports for CyberVISION, the explainability of how that report got there, what data it used, why it used it, right? So we get layers of explainability, right? From the event to the LLM to the result. Now this is more explainable to the legal guy that has no idea what a cyber threat is, but knows the laws associated with the cyber threat. So exactly, being able to explain is the key.
Yeah, very, very exciting. These I'm just blown away with the innovation of these products. Jos, you've done a phenomenal job at CyberVISION as well. Very, very good job throughout this year. Drew, we have about 10 minutes left. Do we have any questions from the community, my friend?
We had one that came up just a while ago. It was a question about the C node, right? So what would the C node operator need to have? Do they need to have anything special in reference to holding so much V energy? Basically, you just need your NAC, your network access credential on VITREUS with your wallet, and you can operate a C node. Now, it's a little bit more expensive than our V node, obviously, but once they're commercially available, you can start looking at those options for yourself.
Yeah, these are under design. We're excited to talk about the C node today because it's definitely an aspect that we're looking to finalize in 2024. and it's the next logical node type, with the V node being the first, which is the validating staking, and then the C node coming promptly behind that to handle the massive workload of AI itself. So,
and one of you guys mentioned the S node too. So let's just remind people that there's something else coming as well.
Another node, which, Taylor, do you want to just go over what an S node is real quick?
Yeah, so the S node is supposed to be basically a big batch of data storage that you can basically rent to whomever would be interested in buying it through a decentralized storage means, right? So you'd be kind of similar to Filecoin or Storage, those kind of protocols in it, just for reference, right? Bring your own storage to that, rent it out, harvest V energy from that use to earn staking rewards off it.
And we'll have both options. We'll have both options. We'll have the traditional, hosting options, but bringing the distributed nature to market is also very important to us here at Collaborative Digital. And we'll definitely have more information on those specific topics in future Tech Talks. All right. So, any other questions?
Well, not a question from the audience, but the data that is stored, right? It's broken into pieces, encrypted, and scattered in fragments across the DePIN network, right? So if I were to send or store a picture, just a picture of my family on the network, it's going to break it into pieces and send it all over to all the nodes and encrypt it, right? So if there is a vulnerability attack or whatever, an attacker could get one fragmented piece of that encrypted picture, and alone that's worthless. You can't decrypt it. You can't even understand what it is. So I think it's important, Taylor, to have people understand that this storage is kind of like a RAID array, right? On your PC, you can have a RAID, which is a direct backup of your data. So if a drive fails, it's still there. So that's also in place with the S nodes. If a node goes down, that fragmented data is actually going to repopulate on the other nodes that are still up to keep a copy of it and keep the data safe. And
it's actually more secure and more resilient.
Yeah, and it's inherent in the concept, in the blockchain concept itself, right? And so it requires a bit of a paradigm shift when it comes to what focus do we bring in security? Because it's not so much about restricting access to the blockchain; it's more about encryption, where increased, let's say, focus on security needs to be in a blockchain situation.
Yeah, as Chad said, it absolutely increases compliance posture. So the roadmap of the node types are actually all tied into the vision of, CDI's core mission of, building out compliance assurance products, and just governance, transparency, security, secure by design. That's just the mantra of what we're building. And really excited about COMPLiQ, really excited about CyberVISION, and we're already working very closely with the sales organizations and building out even some go-to-market strategies with our friends at NetSpy and Mainsail and some others. So very exciting start to 2024 as we end up or round out 2023. It's
gonna be awesome. I feel like our command center could almost sell itself. That's a little cocky statement for sure, but I feel like once people see it, they're going to be pounding on the door. It's going to be incredible.
I agree.
Yep. We actually did have another question from the community. When marketing machine to sell this product/service? So basically, Andre's using a bit of our Discord vernacular of when, So when he's talking about when we're going to start selling this and get the sales team out on the road. So is there a timeline for that, Tim?
There is. As we talk about these two products, these products are revenue ready. Target for production ready for CyberVision is March timeframe. COMPLiQ early January to mid-January. Our sales organization is already up to speed. We're actually meeting later today and early next week to finalize our go-to-market in advance of Christmas. The go-to-market meaning how we're actually going to sell this, how we're actually going to have an outreach campaign, and who our target market is. Chad has already built out our Salesforce CRM, and we're in the middle of populating those targets and just, the different demographics. So as always, when we're building here at Collaborative Digital, we're also doing other things in parallel. And so those things have been happening for a couple months now. So everything is set to align very well in January.
Thank you, Tim. What's interesting for you guys to think about is, yes, we have a sales team that can go out and find leads. But a lot of us work in these corporate environments now. A lot of us know someone who owns a business or could use this software. What would be wise for you is to, when this is live, start bringing those conversations to us. If you have a contact at a company or whatever,
Sure.
Talk to us in Discord, hit up Tim and say, hey, I've got a company who could use this. I want to get you in touch with them. And Tim will send his sales team to them. And I think that's an excellent idea for you guys to start thinking about. This is your product too.
Another exciting element of this is we are also getting ready to ramp up Europe as well. So we're from a sales perspective. So we have some aspects of the go-to-market happening there next week. So all very, very exciting. And, we're going to continue to hit it hard and move at the speed of Chad.
That's really fast.
All right, gentlemen, closing comments. Yas, you want to go first? Put you on the spot.
I know we have them at the end of these tech talks, but I keep forgetting them. I don't have any closing. I think everything has been said, and again, I'm very happy and enthusiastic to be part of this organization and the products we're building. So,
good.
I guess that's it.
Good, Taylor.
The train's been moving for a while, and we're about to hit our first stop, which is our milestones, right? Our at market milestones. So that's pretty exciting, and I'm eager to see how 2024 comes to be with all these things finally usable, sellable, functional.
Can this be used in the medical field? Absolutely. This is not. This solution is not sector or industry specific.
Agnostic, yeah.
So it is absolutely agnostic. Yep. Mr. Drew.
I was going to go last to wrap things up. If you had anything, Tim.
I just want to say thank you to all our partners, and especially the tech team. I couldn't be more proud of what you guys have accomplished in a very short amount of time. And it's been an honor to work alongside you, but we're not done yet. And we have a lot of things launching in the next couple of weeks. So stay with us, and we will. We have a lot of work to do still. Drew, you want to take us out, buddy?
Absolutely. Thank you guys for hanging out with us today. This is a recorded session, so you can find it on Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and our other media platforms if you want to rewatch it. There is a lot of information that maybe takes a few listens to actually understand and comprehend. But to answer your question, Tim, I'm just incredibly proud to be part of something that's going to make a difference, and it's going to leave our mark on not just as a business, but in the world. I think what we're doing is going to change how people do business in the future across the world, not just in our own little backyard. So I'm proud to be a part of that.
Good.
All right, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out, and we will catch you on the next one. If you're not part of our Discord, I do recommend you join us at discord.gg/VITREUS and join the community for some early news and early bean spillage, as we like to call it. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Have a
Take
good
care.
day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.